Thanks for joining. We're doing our panel today about STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. Hope you guys got some, I see some of you did get a boba, guys. Hopefully everyone got some boba during the break. So really excited to have you all here. My name is Joanna. I live in San Francisco and grew up here in the Bay Area. I actually, when I was growing up, did all the right things. I did well at school and ended up going and studying engineering in college. And then after that, working at Genentech, which is a biotech company around here, supporting a lot of the work we do to manufacture medicines for patients. And then actually took a total pivot a few years, about a decade after that, and actually joined the diversity, equity, inclusion team at Genentech. So you can say that I've always had a love and passion for science and technology, but really caring about how we think about doing so in a way that really improves lives for everybody, make sure everyone is represented in the work we do. So I'm joined here by CJ, who's going to be co-moderating with me.
Yeah. Hi, I'm CJ. I'm from Los Angeles, so I flew out here yesterday. I'm a high school senior. I interned at Boeing the past summer. I've volunteered over 150 hours teaching STEM to children in my area, and I'm also a part of a program at Northrop Grumman where they train interns and future STEM leaders. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad that all of you guys are here too.
Yeah, so we want this to be a really, interactive panel. So please feel free, if you've got questions, raise your hand. We'll do a moderated kind of Q&A in the beginning, but make sure we'll save time for questions from all of you at the end. So CJ, would you like to introduce our panelists?
Yeah, so here we have Ting Liu. Ting, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Ting. I grew up in China, in Beijing. I got to Tsinghua University and studied computer science. And then I moved to the United States. I joined Carnegie Mellon University and pursued my PhD. And after that, I moved to California and I joined Google. I've been working at Google for 19 years and really glad to be here and discuss technology with everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenn Pangilinan. I was born in the Philippines, and in the mid-'80s, my family immigrated here in the United States. But since then, I've lived in the Bay Area, lived in San Lorenzo, Oakland, and Millbrae, Belmont, and now back to Millbrae. I went to school at UC Berkeley, so I never really moved out of the Bay Area. I love it here. Like Joe, I also work at Genentech, and I've been there for 26 years and would really love to share my story with all of you today.
Right. Thank you, Ting and Jen, for introducing yourselves, but now we'd also like to hear about all of you. So our first question for you guys is, what brought you here today? And if anyone would like to share out, you guys can just raise your hands.
Yeah, we want to make sure that you get something out of this panel, so we kind of know why are you here? What do you want to learn? What are you curious about?
I guess I'll go then. I'm Samara. I'm a high school junior. This is my sister, who has been brought along. Anyways, particularly I love life sciences, so I'm kind of interested in what the pathway looks like within that, and then within STEM as a whole, because I feel like there's a lot of different career paths you can take, so I'm kind of interested in that.
Great. Definitely we'll talk a little bit about everyone's career paths. What other things are people curious to make sure they walk away with today?
My name is Devin. I'm a high school sophomore. I'm interested in biotechnology.
Anyone else want to share?
My name is Marcus. I am a high school sophomore, and I am here because I am interested in the general STEM field, but more towards medical school and how you guys got to where you guys are. Yeah.
My name is Angela Shin. I'm a senior. I'm interested in doing a major in biomedical engineering in 2026 fall. So I was interested in the STEM group here because of that. I was interested if you guys offer any internships or in your companies.
I'm Kalina, and I'm not too sure what I'm interested in, but I remember when I took biology, I was really interested in genetics and gene research, and then maybe a bit of biochem too.
Got a lot of kind of biology interest in this crowd, actually. Anybody interested on more the engineering or computer science side? I'm curious. Yeah.
My name is Bernice. I'm also a high school senior. I joined the 1990 youth. I can't pronounce the last name, but because of the Asian Arts and Culture Club at my school. But I'm also a part of the STEM club, and I recently joined robotics. So I was more interested in actually the computer science field and maybe some engineering. So I joined this breakout session to see if that's really the path for me.
Perfect. Okay.
My name is Kepler. I'm a freshman, and I'm interested in kind of general engineering concepts. I'm really pulled towards aerospace and mechanical engineering. So yeah, so much fun. Great.
Awesome.
I saw you had your hand up earlier too.
I'm interested in nuclear engineering because it's kind of cool. It's energy sustainable. So it might pass that off.
All right. We have a second question. So a lot of you guys, like you said, different kinds of STEM, but is there anything particular about STEM that made you interested in it? What kind of sparked your interest in the different fields that you guys want to explore?
I kind of like the research and problem solving aspect of STEM.
I mean, CJ, you said it was seeing all the airplanes around where you grew up, right?
Yeah. Well, I live right by LAX, so the planes their path, or they used to be path right over my house. So that was really nice. And then I play travel hockey, and right by my rink I play at, there's a Air Force Base, a Boeing site, which is where I interned at, and there's also Lockheed, Northrop, and Raytheon in the area.
I know for me, it was actually when I was in middle school, I had one of the mom of one of my friends gave me this book, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. Has anyone heard of that? By this physicist. And it was really, to me, sparked this interest that science could be really fun and you could still be a really colorful, fun character. It was not straight, buttoned up and boring. And it gave people a way to see the world differently. So that was really kind of got me interested in thinking about science. So maybe we'll start off then with Jenn and Ting. I'm kind of curious, maybe Ting, you first, how did your interest in STEM first start? What made you interested in going the direction that you did? And how did you end up doing what you do now in AI?
Thank you. Yeah, so I think when I was young, my dad, he actually wanted to be aerospace engineering, building airplane. But for some reason, he was not able to do that. He ended up become a middle school teacher. And he used to always give me very interesting math challenge or problems or puzzles for me to solve. So at that time, I wasn't really thinking about my career, but I think solving those puzzle problems is really, really interesting. And I get rewarded if I can solve a very challenging one. And so that's maybe the first part that get me into very interesting in math, science related problems. And then getting into the middle school, my teacher, he's a math teacher, but I think he has a way that he basically told us solving those math problems, you don't really need that in any of your job because there's calculator, those math problems already solved problem, right? So the reason they teach us those is really to help us learn how to do research, how to get a real world problem. So what's the thought process and how do we become smarter? So he was telling us that there's nothing in the world, there's no why behind it. You should really think about always ask the question why and how you decompose a problem, how to explore and really solve that hard problem. So to us, solving those math problems or like learning physics, like it's less about learning the knowledge. It's more about like the mental exercise, how you become smarter and solve problem, be prepared. So so that's how I get really interested in STEM, and computer science was my major, and so this is sort of one of the areas that it's kind of like has a lot of like mental challenges, solving like has problem, but also at the same time really you can use that to build something. And getting into the AI space, that was almost like 20 years ago. That at that time, like machine learning, AI was not a very popular computer science domain. A lot of people learning database, learning systems, distributed systems. But because I chose machine learning because, again, I think solving like very challenging statistical problems. I think a lot of problems. The world itself is like a big statistics problems, and then how you can use computer science methodologies or machine learning methodologies to solve that kind of problem is something I'm really passionate about. It's not about a very specific problem. It's really about this methodology can help us solve almost like any kind of this type of problem. So that's why I learned machine learning, and then I joined Google later. This like the whole career, it basically is just built on. And I just want to fast forward to the generative AI world. Because I think when I work at Google, we're trying to solve large-scale machine learning problems. But then we realized that outside of Google, it's very hard to use this powerful tool to solve any of the problem. The fundamental issue is any machine learning problems, you need massive training data. And before GenAI came out, it's almost like every domain, there's not enough data for you to use to train the model, and then the model becomes less powerful. But then after generative AI came out, this foundation model sort of learn the world's information, and then any problems can be framed as a machine learning problem, and it can be the model itself can be taught and trained to solve the problem. And this is, some of you talk about like genetic, like life science problems, medical problems. I think finally, I think we have this powerful tool. No matter like what kind of science problem you want to pursue in the future, I think this powerful tool can really help you advance and become like 10x, 100x more efficient to solve the kind of problem. Sorry, it was a long answer.
No, that was great. And I love how your interest in the beginning with your teacher telling you it's not about the knowledge, but it's about the problem solving. And I think anybody that goes into science and engineering, it's much more about how you think about things than the thing you learn. And I think especially today where we have things like Gemini or ChatGPT, you can find out information so easily, but that's not the same as understanding how to solve problems. So I think it's really good to remind people the difference between like knowledge and critical thinking or wisdom, right? Jenn, what about you? Like, what sparked your interest in STEM? And did you feel like you had any expectations from your family about what path you were going to pursue?
No, thank you. So yeah, growing up, I was more into the arts. I loved to dance. I choreographed dances in my school. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But I think the pivotal moment for me was in the late 80s. My grandfather was diagnosed with lung cancer. And he died at 56, so that was very young. Unfortunately, he was a chain smoker. And I remember my grandma just sort of like nagging him and like, stop smoking. And then, a couple of years later, my aunt died of breast cancer. She was diagnosed at the age of 30 and died like 33, again, very young age. And in that decade, you just have radiation, chemotherapy. And I just remember their struggles and, not enough medicine out there, but also seeing them at the hospital. And my friends would say I was weird. I loved going to the hospital. I loved, seeing them and some of the other relatives who have had other diseases and autoimmune. My family, unfortunately, have a number of autoimmune diseases. And when I went to the hospital, I felt this sort of love and unconditional feel. And how nurses and doctors were taking care of patients. And so that was sort of a pivotal moment for me. Like, I want to be in the healthcare industry. But at that time, in high school, I wasn't sure what that was going to be. I'm Filipino of background. My sister decided to go to nursing school, and I have a lot of family and relatives that were doctors. So when I went to college at UC Berkeley, I decided I was going to be a pre-med, but even then I wasn't sure what that meant. So I did quite a bit of internship. I went to intern at UCSF and in the pharmacy because I'm thinking like, oh, maybe I'm going to go into PharmD. I had that exposure, and then I also interned at Sutter Health, more in their orthopedic. I was sort of thinking like, oh, maybe I'm going to do sports medicine, or again, being in college and, still young, just trying to figure things out. And then I also interned at Napa State Mental Hospital, which was quite an experience. I was in the sort of child mental department, so learned a lot. So even then I graduated at UC Berkeley with a biology degree, again, sort of pre-med. I decided I was going to take a year off, do work, and at the same time, figure out how I'm going to get to medical school. I knew it was going to be competitive, and I always, saw myself as I am not as smart as my, friends, et cetera. So I took a year off to kind of get myself ready for that medical school, taking the MCAT and then all the application. But I landed this job at Alza Corporation. It doesn't exist anymore because J&J bought them more than a decade ago. And I got a clinical research assistant job. And quite honestly, at that time, like, I'm not sure, what my skill sets are and what I'm going to do. But it was an entry-level position. And to be honest, that opened my world in the clinical trial space. Developing medicine, making medicines. I thought, I had to have an MD or a PharmD or a PhD to be in biotech or a pharmaceutical company. And so that just kind of opened, things for me. And I realized sort of that connecting it back to that feeling that I had in the 80s of, helping patients. And I realized like, oh, I could actually, help patients and advance, the healthcare and medicine in a different way. So I started to have fun, and I went to Icon Clinical Research, which is a contract research organization. I did a lot of traveling across the United States to different hospitals and clinics. I was sort of a field monitor, so I would audit, clinical data, clinical trial information, to make decisions, obviously, coming back from a sponsor pharmaceutical side. And then in 1999, I came to Genentech, and I never looked back. I think, what's kept me there is, again, it's really addicting when you have your medicines, get approved and are either saving lives or improving lives of patients around the world. So that's sort of, that spark of, there was that problem of disease and patients dying or patients, needing that care. So that's sort of, that's how I've connected, and that's how I've stayed in this field.
Love that, right? It's both of you. There are problems that you saw in the world that you wanted to be able to solve, and you kind of charted your own path to figure out how to do something with those problems. One thing that I was thinking about also is like, this was something that came up in the earlier keynote this morning too, is this idea that we sometimes have assumptions about the way the world works or assumptions about the way things are. And so one of the things we actually want to do today is like maybe put out some of those assumptions people may have and see, do you agree with them? And maybe what do our panelists think about it? So CJ, you want to do the takeover? So maybe what we're going to do is like, CJ, we'll put out a statement, and if you agree with it, raise your hand. And then we'll hear from Ting and Jenn a little bit. Maybe do they think it's true, or they're totally false, and just kind of react to that.
Okay. So, the first statement is, if you want to succeed in STEM, you have to go to a top university and get like amazing grades. Have any of you guys ever heard that before? Or like, do you believe that it's true that, success in STEM relies on like, your grades or your school performance?
Only one
Okay.
person?
That's interesting because I know a lot more people think that in in my
I
computer
definitely
science
thought
class.
that.
Yeah. So I mean, just for the sake of
I
it,
can-
do you guys
yeah.
want to share out what you think
Yeah.
about that?
I mean, certainly, I have a 12 and 15-year-old and I do, tell them to study hard and, you want to get to, but grades are not all. And truth be told, I got a C+ in my genetics class at UC Berkeley. And there was a reason for that. But I guess just to say that, you can get over that. And, when you get into the world, whether it's a pharmaceutical company, biotech, nobody's going to be checking that. It doesn't mean that you don't study, but again, like don't sweat the small stuff. And I had a learning, why I had that C+, because I was a procrastinator. I was like, studying and I had insomnia. And by the time I had that final exam, my brain was not working. So it was more of, what did I learn from that experience and not procrastinating? Because by the time I got to I did not even finish that test. But anyway, I guess the story is definitely work hard, right? And learn as much as you can, but don't sweat the small stuff. If you get a B, B- whatsoever, it's okay. Like the world will move forward and you'll be fine. Yeah, when you get into the, whatever it is that you choose to do.
Yeah, I agree with Ginny. I don't think grade is the most important thing. And also, I have similar stories, but I think fundamentally, getting high grades, I think it's really about to really fundamentally build up your knowledge base and at school it's all about to prepare for your future career, right? So you need to build your muscles to be able to do that. I'll maybe draw an analogy to the nowadays when we train the large language model, how we train that, right? So I don't know if you heard about the inference time training or the thinking model, right? So the model is not only like you train the model to remember the knowledge, right? Now the most powerful technology is to get the models to think, to learn. And the kind of reinforcement learning is really about you set a goal and then you give some reward and let the model explore. And when the model explore and fundamentally really learn the stuff, it's more powerful because anything you learn today, you probably don't really directly need it in your career. It's more about how you use that learning to solve new problems, how to generalize this. So I think that's the reason you want to go to school. Of course, top school, there's maybe like more experienced teachers and there's you can get your peers to basically you have a more like peer pressure but those are all external factors that will help you learn, but fundamentally is like you learn it. That's not like getting to the top, the highest score and the top university is nice to have. I don't think that's a must have.
Sorry. Yeah. So for our next question, are any of you guys like worried about like choosing the wrong major? Like, do any of you feel like getting into like one path and like you don't want to like stick to the wrong path in life? Is that like a concern for any of you? Yeah, a couple. So our next kind of myth we want to bust is that if you get into a STEM major or if you like get into engineering school, you're kind of stuck majoring in STEM. You're kind of like stuck in the pathway you choose when you go to college. You guys want to start?
Yeah. No, I think hopefully I, shared with you my story where one, really expose yourself to different things, but just because you've declared something, like you're stuck there. I can tell you that in my in Genentech, in my organization, I've got folks that yes, they have MD, PhD, PharmD, but then I also have someone with an oceanography background, and I've got one who's an archaeologist. But it's amazing how these sort of life experience. So the degree and the bachelor's or advanced degrees that you have is just one component of what you bring into the world. There's also those life experiences that companies, corporate organizations are looking for, leadership skills, communication, some of those things. So don't feel like you're stuck in there. And I always advise folks to expose yourself. There's so many different possibilities. Clearly, I'm one example of where it was an MD, kind of pre-med, but now I've taken this sort of biotech pharmaceutical industry, and it's been fun.
Yeah, I have similar, like my colleagues also has very diverse background. And also even like in my domain, like we have like a Google Fellow in computer science. And I know two of them also get like an Amy Award. So they also contribute to something completely different than their current major. And for me, I shared earlier that when I learned machine learning, at that time is not the popular major. Like most people they don't even know what machine learning is. Like AI is a pretty narrow area, but now becomes so popular. So you never know like what you choose or you pick at early phase will is the right choice or not, and that right definition also change all the time. So I think it's more about exploring, as Jenny said, and also really find your passion. Because I think whatever you do, you really need to fundamentally like it, enjoy it. I think that will fundamentally help you overcome any problems when you hit there, and then to help you eventually become successful. If you don't have that passion, even though you choose the maybe the most popular area, and you will not be that successful. That's my.
One thing to add, I forgot to add, when I came to Genentech, again, running clinical studies, but I realized as I was getting, promoted or given scope of work, I started to lead organizations and sort of leading the business. And so in 2009, I decided to go and get my MBA because, my path was leading me into a direction where I'm now leading an organization and, managing the budget, resource capacity and all that good stuff. And again, operations. So I went and took my MBA and actually, I was so happy that Genentech paid part of it. So kind of just, again, to show you where there's so many times, I think Andrew or somebody else in the morning session talked about, it's like this one destination, and there's so many different pivot points, and where, kind of allowing your journey, your life journey, career journey, and sort of, being flexible and just taking all that in. And then one other example, I was connecting with a colleague of mine in Genentech, and we were talking about, she has a PharmD, but her role is in the marketing group in our commercial organization. And then, here I am with biology and an MBA, and, it was a pharmaceutical marketing MBA, but I'm in the development side of things. So when, we talk about, if we talk about just our resume and CV, people will probably think we have the opposite roles and jobs, but, we kind of, again, sharing that story of there's so many different pathways, and really enjoy that life journey where it might take you, and grounded with, what you're passionate about.
And I actually wanted to add too is I remember being a high school senior and applying for college, and on the application when I asked you what major do you want to declare, right? And for a lot of schools like the UCs, you have to choose, and you're locked into the School of Science or engineering, whatever it is, and that can be feeling like a really big momentous decision. But I changed majors when I got to college, and honestly, sometimes people will ask you like, what's your 5-year plan? And I've always hated that question because everything I've done, if you had asked me 5 years prior, I would have had no idea that was a thing I wanted to do or a thing that was possible here to do. So it's not actually a very clear path, even though when you're in school, it seems like everything's set up in that way. You'll change what you do, you'll find different interests, and you'll find that the things you can do and you've learned can often take you into a different direction that no one would have expected.
Another thing we wanted to ask you guys is, do any of you guys like worry about AI and like your jobs, or like worry that like the job market's gonna like go down because of AI? So yeah, no. It's a concern for me too. I know people that are thinking of like going into engineering or something more hands-on because of AI, because like they're scared about losing jobs in software. But I was wondering what our panelists would like to say about that.
Yeah, so AI is my domain. I think if you think about every like technology revolution, that will fundamentally maybe change the way how people are doing. There are jobs, the jobs defined in the before the revolution and after the revolution will change, right? But I think it's not about like everybody will lose job. It's more about the job will be different. The kind of job will be different in the future, right? So to see like how many like peasants we have these days, right? Because the advancement of technology, you don't everybody need to like be peasants, like, but you can. There's more work coming up. I think for AI, what I see it's in. So first of all, it definitely will help redefine almost every industry. It's changed everybody's life. It's because it fundamentally 100 times bring up the efficiency for any job, like any job people are doing. There's less of the, I would say, the execution part, the routine part, manual work. Model is more efficient in doing that, and model is also very efficient in exploring and do deep research and finding the informations that in the past you may have to spend months of exploring and finding the information. Model can do it instantly, right? I think a lot of people now use maybe notebook LLM, use deep research in like Chat GPT or Gemini, right? So that drastically improve your efficiency, right? So you, when you want to like build something, normally first you need to explore and learn, get some knowledge, and then you build on top of that. But then model help you sort of accelerate that piece so that you can start building things without spending too much time doing the exploration. So that actually opened the door for many like new possibilities. For instance, if you think about like life science, for example, like Google has this Nobel-winning like AlphaFold 3 model. I think that model is open source. I think if used the traditional way of exploring genetics, sorry, I'm not an expert there, right? I think this is the 10 to the like 300 degrees of kind of possibilities, like the whole human, like maybe takes I forgot like 1,000 years to really discover, right? So it's just not possible to discover those problem in the traditional way, but not model discover it. So it set the foundation. It make possible for life science to really grow much faster. So I think there's more opportunities for people to explore science, to really push the boundary, to understand the world much better. I think those kind of jobs in the past you cannot even imagine. Right, and then in the day-to-day life, like even not science, like we talk about art, right? These days, model can generate artwork, can generate like videos, right? But then think about in the past, you only a few like movie makers they can make movie, but now everybody you can make it, right? So there's more possibility for people to build things like gaming, the same thing, right? How can you imagine like building like a personalized game for everybody? Right? So like those are new possibilities. We should think of like let's start imagining, like start like exploring, right? But that's not the traditional kind of job anymore. Right? So I really don't worry about like there's no job, but it's more like how you adapt, how you learn these powerful tools and use the powerful tools to explore your dream. And I think in the future, the kind of capability you need to build up is like human is the one who can define the problems, to find the problems. Model can execute, right? So leave the execution part to the model, and you unlock your own creativity, solve the problems you're passionate about. I think this the best time to get into like universities and to explore that possibility. This is really like once in a generation or lifetime opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, maybe just to add one thing, in Genentech and Roche, we are all about AI right now. And I can say I'm actually really excited for this, tool technology and how it could really open up innovation. So in, my world and Genentech world, as Ting had mentioned, there's so many things that we're doing sort of, manually and it takes time, it takes weeks, and sometimes drug development can take 10 years, at least in the clinical space, where there's so many efficiencies and it's taking a lot of the repetitive things, actually the stuff that actually you don't want it to be doing, and making things, simpler and even like, Gemini, minute taking in the past, like, got jobs, roles that will be doing these, minutes that takes time. But here we are within 5 minutes, Gemini would spit out that work. And then you could imagine in, target discovery and, what we do in the clinical operations space. I tell my folks where, again, very manual research, like even looking for the different hospitals or patient population, so on and so forth. It actually speeds up what we do. And I'm going to steal, somebody had said this, I can't remember who, but like AI won't steal, won't eliminate the doctor's job, but it will eliminate the doctor who doesn't use AI. And I would say the same thing in our industry, where it is here, it's going to be really making things efficient. And then it really opens up like our own human creativity to be then that capacity to think of other problems to solve and other innovation, right? There's always going to be that human oversight. But I understand the fear. It's real. So at least for me as a leader, kind of really showing where, look, yeah, this used to take us 2 months to do, and now it's taking us like 30 minutes. Imagine all the other time we could be solving, bigger problems. And so I'm personally excited about it. And you guys, as you're this generation, like, wow, excited, like just, I think you guys are smarter than we were when we were. Just amazing, that information that you guys at the tip of your, and being responsible too in how you use AI. I have, again, a 12 and 15-year-old, and they've learned how to use ChatGPT for their, I'm like, no plagiarizing, no copying and pasting, but just to kind of spark your idea. So again, don't be afraid of it. The world has to advance. And maybe last thing 20 years ago when things were starting to, with the technology getting digitized, we went from paper to electronic medical records, electronic, things. And I remember 20 years ago when some folks were afraid of that, because they're like, oh my God, this is going to change the data managers' jobs and da-da-da. And it did. But we wanted to do that because it really advanced, again, everything that we did in the pharmaceutical and, again, advancing medicine. So embrace it and be responsible for how you use it.
I'm kind of curious, actually, how many of you use some sort of AI every day? Or almost every day, maybe. Okay, well, some of you do. All right, cool. So we were kind of going abstract there around your careers and such. So maybe we get a little more practical and sort of like in the work you do, like what does a typical day look like? Jen, do you want to start and tell us about that?
Sure. It's not going to sound. So I'm a vice president in the clinical operations space, kind of because I am leading organization, leading a group, and responsible for clinical trial delivery. I am in meetings a lot. So a lot of talking, a lot of strategy, conversation, a lot of portfolio review, pipeline, and decision making. So I am in meetings a lot. And where I kind of mentioning about the AI tools, like just having that summary and yeah. So I'm in meetings a lot, talking to a lot of people, either my group, but also, biotech is a cross-functional endeavor. So a lot of influencing, navigating the organization. So a lot of meetings.
Actually, I was in similar position. I was vice president for the Google Cloud AI platform. So in the past 3 years, we completely transformed our AI platform to be everything about Gemini, about Gen AI, and we want to build a platform to help everybody, especially every enterprise business, to be able to adopt AI. But actually, I sort of I feel like I spend too much time because I have the big organization in meetings and all that. My own passion is getting more closer to the technology side, because right now we're not really hitting the limit yet. So the technology continue to grow. Just 2 months ago, I made a decision to transition to a individual contributor role. So I don't lead a big organization now. So now I'm more working as a sort of Uber tech lead to explore the basically how we can connect new technologies in the AI space to the real world, like production. So because now I don't really have a big team, my day-to-day work is more like working with our Google research teams and also our engineering team to prototype new ideas. And I also start to do more of the hands-on work to really explore what's possible next. Like for instance, I think someone mentioned robotics. Like robotics, definitely one of the future area. Like we can further scale, and then also right now model become more and more. I would say natively multimodal. It can get not just text, but also image, video, like live streaming, audio in, and also multimodal out. Right. So there will be a lot of real time applications with models, and how you can get models to be able to sort of remember everything it sees and better personalize and reproduce. So those are all very interesting areas we can explore. So that's sort of now is my day-to-day life to explore that possibility and see what we can bring to the world.
Cool. Thank you, Ting. So I want to make sure we save time for you all to ask more questions too. So if you've got a question, just please raise your hand. We'd love to hear it.
For machine learning, is it like coding?
Machine learning is not. So I think this is sort of the generative AI model itself is kind of a machine learning problem. So it's about the AI algorithm framework behind it to build the large language models or large models.
So you've spoken a lot about how you got into this field via your passion, right? And a lot of, I'm post high school, but when I was in high school, I was really confused about the process of finding my own passion. How did you kind of take experiences, maybe if you have a personal anecdote about finding your passion, or maybe an experience where you tried something that you thought you were interested in and then pivoted out of it, and how did you turn that to your benefit?
That's a great question. So actually, when I was in high school, I also don't really have a methodological way of trying to explore different things, right? So at that time, we were just looking at some of the area. Like there are certain area I clearly have no clue, or I don't think I'm good at, or I'm very interested. Like some of the for instance, the financial service, or like this kind of areas, like I just have no clue, right? So, but I think what I kind of think very cool, very interesting is like computer science is one area, and of course some of the math, physics, areas also. I do think I could be interested, and some of the engineering areas looks like very interesting. So, but I so specific area I don't really have much clue, and I go with computer science. It's also a little bit like my brother's advice, and then I just go, right. So, but I think when I start to really learn more about it and understand more about it, I become clear that I kind of like this kind of work. But then, for instance, going to PhD is also like you need to choose like what specific area you want to do research. Actually, my undergrad, I started more on the networking side. We call it like a PetriNet. There's some research around that area, and I got accepted to Carnegie Mellon because of that area. And the professor who gave me the offer is in networking. But I think CMU has this very interesting, I wouldn't say policies. Even though the professor gave me the offer, doesn't mean that I have to work with that professor. So at that time, they have a marriage process. So when we first go to the graduate school, every professor will give a talk, and you can go to all the professors' talk, and they will basically tell you what they do, and then based on that talk, like you find like three professors like you want to talk to if you're interested in their career, and they also get a chance to know the student more, and then they also list their like a preferred student, and we do a marriage, like sort of matching process. And then so actually at that time I actually didn't know much about machine learning before I joined CMU. But Andrew Moore is a professor who gave the very interesting talk about AI, machine learning. I suddenly learned that I think this is something I really like. So I talked to him, and he also think I have pretty good like mathematician, I came like a mathematician, so he also likes me. So that's sort of kind of get me into this machine learning domain. So it was not like, you don't have to think this has to be all well planned, and but I think just as Jenn said, like just go explore, and then when you get new information, when you find your passion, like you know at the time, right? But then it's also okay, like you may not go to directly to the making the right choice, and then you can adjust. There's no right or wrong.
Actually, one thing maybe I'll add to that is just try things. Like, it is totally okay to try things, whether it's taking a new class in school, maybe it is you doing an internship, or just going out and talking to someone new. I mean, that might spark something you don't know. I can think, for example, when I was in college, I thought I was going to do biology. And what happened was I ended up meeting a professor that wanted to take me to a IKE, so American Institute of Chemical Engineers, like young professional night. And I went and talked to people, and I realized there was something really interesting around chemical engineering that I had never known about before, right? It's what clubs are you doing outside of school? Maybe that sparks an interest that is something you want to explore. There's different things that you can do. You know, even my shift from doing more engineering into like diversity inclusion work, I was volunteering for like our sort of employee groups at Genentech, and it was a way for me to like try out something else and see like, did I want to do that? So, you know, it's sometimes you don't know until you try, and don't be afraid to try, even if it's just like the smallest little taste. You can always figure out maybe you want to do it a little bit differently, but the important thing is to give it a shot, even if it's just going and talking to someone else to learn a little bit more. Maybe a third question?
So STEM has a reputation for kind of being very rigorous and also have a very high burnout, especially when you go into medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you guys kind of like take care of yourselves, and what is some like tips that you would give to just kind of combat burnout rates and just like losing your passion in the process of like competition and other stuff like that?
Great question.
That's a great question. In my early 20s, I think I'll go back to when you're passionate about something, we've really, have found that. I remember working really hard in my 20s, but I was having fun because I felt like I had a sense of purpose. And I wasn't married, I didn't have children, and so I did not care. And I loved what I was doing, and I was traveling, when I was at the CRO. So I think that's probably the first thing. And when you graduate, and I know that it's still a lot of exploring, like know who you are, like know what motivates you and drives you. So I'll say that. But then, then in the corporate world, I agree with you. It's a very demanding job that I have, and I've learned how, especially when I had my children, I learned very quickly to just have boundaries, and I will have the boundaries. I'm going to define those because my manager's not going to define those for me, my peers, everyone. And the home life, there's so many different pressures. And so you have to be clear. I'm glad that I've learned to sort of, okay, I'm in control of my world, and I'm going to say no to certain things, whether it's at home or at work at Genentech, where I'm like, nope. I'm not going to be taking, late night calls, or if they are, it has to be really business critical. So I've had to learn that. Or, at home, I am grateful to have a partner, my husband, who, we talk a lot about, what I could, contribute, what he could contribute. So it's a team effort. But it's really about, in my mind, being confident and like saying no to things that, might kind of get into, getting burnt out, and taking care of myself. I personally like to do my self-care, mani-pedi, or, doing a walk. I could never get back to the 24-hour fitness, but I'm like, okay, what will work for my schedule? And it's sort of, walking around the neighborhood to get my exercise. So yeah, that self-care is very, very important. And the me time is very important.
Anything you want to add? I love the question too, because I think even everyone's talked here about finding something you're passionate about, but I think sometimes even something you're passionate about can become too much at times, right? Like you can deal with burnout. And very honestly, like I've dealt with burnout in my career, and also dealing with severe depression that sometimes meant I had to like step away from work for a while. And I would say it's sometimes, don't let it get to the point where it like consumes you, and then you realize like you have to take a break, right? Like, make sure you build in time for yourself for whatever it is you do that recharges you, that isn't just the work you do. And also find your tribe, find the people that like fill your cup and that matter to you and support you. And those can be friendships at work, they can be your friends, partners, community outside of work, but the people that you are around are the ones that are going to keep you going more so than any one task. So always remember, I think always the important part is like leaning on your community. And also you're not going to be going 120 miles per hour all the time for the rest of your life. And that was a hard thing for me to learn, is that like there are going to be times or phases in your life where you're like, I can give it all. And then there are other times where you're like, you know what, like my 80% is actually totally great. And that's going to have to be what it is, because I need to be able to take care of myself for a little bit.
Yeah, just one last thing to add is I think when there's a competitions, I think when people having pressure, you always think like maybe like I put all my time there, like I can do more, right? So actually our brain doesn't work that way. So you work very, very long hours, your productivity goes down. It's not just hurting yourself, hurting your health and work-life balance. It's also you seems to be like spending more time, you can do more, but actually you're going to do less with it. So be more scientific of using yourself and try to have more like the sustained performance. Adjust your like setting the boundaries. Like also, I learned like for instance in the morning, I think booking like 1 hour, 2 hours, this is the best time of the day. Like you can think more of the harder problems, and then maybe in the afternoon doing a little bit of more of the routine things. So it's just better organized. Those are all good strategies to help you be more productive and also not like burning yourself out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe at time we'll take one more question. Okay.
I was curious about what the process was like from transitioning from like school to the industry. Because obviously you have like academia and then you get into like the actual industry. And I was curious just like what applied like from school or like what you had to learn.
Yeah, no, I remember graduating from UC Berkeley when I said, okay, I'm going to take, I'm like, okay, what are my skills? I had no idea what I was going to, sorry, your question again?
Like the process of...
Oh, the process to transitioning. I remember because I did not know what like my, I applied to like 20, different biotech companies in the Bay Area, to be honest, just because I wasn't sure, like, what am I, and the one story I didn't share is out of the 20 companies, I got an offer from Genentech for a lab assistant. And then I got an offer at Alza for a clinical research assistant. And, my parents, I remember like, well, you got to take the Genentech because, even at that time, it was already a very established company. But I knew like, okay, I'm going to be bored. They're probably going to be. And the job at Alza was sort of a team, environment. And so I decided to go to Alza. And yeah, that kind of, again, took me where. So I'm just sort of sharing my sort of life experience in sometimes you don't know, but like, I tell my son, like, look, you're going to have to like cast a wide net in that transition because you're not sure what the opportunities might be. Versus being like, it's not going to be the dream job right away. It's not going to be the dream company right away. And it's okay. It's about learning and again, taking the opportunities that might present themselves each time.
Yeah, for me also, I remember when before I joined Google, I did summer intern at Google because maybe this is not a very typical experience because when I did intern, I feel like Google is just another college or university. So I think the culture is very similar to academic because they're like people passionate about just like Google has a mission that like organizing the whole world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, right? So I think people there, like basically there's a lot of bottom up. There's people just come up with all kinds of ideas and then people form a group and just work on it. There's team boundary, but there's a lot of collaborations across teams. There's free food. There's people are very happy there. So it's part of the reason I joined Google because I feel like I can I sort of work in the dream area. But I know that not every company is like that. So I think now if I give advice is like when you go to a company, like look at whether the culture of the company match what you're looking for, and it's different than university or college where the goal is for you to educate, like get educations. But you go to the company, you definitely need to carry the company's like OKRs. You need to deliver things, but at the same time, you also grow yourself, right? So your personal growth and the company growth has to align. Otherwise, it either hurts your own growth or it hurts the company's goal, right? So how do you get this aligned? How do you partner with your work with your team and work with your manager? But I think this is a two-way exploration. But that maybe do you have more advice?
No, last thing too. One thing that I'm glad. I think the curriculums in both, elementary, high school, and colleges are changing. I think the one thing that was an eye-opening for me when I got into the corporate world is how university, at least in my time, very focused on the technical skills, but in the corporate world that we are in, learning, decision making, communication, collaboration, team effort are highly, highly important, in addition to, the technical skills that I did not get when I was at UC Berkeley. I do know that, the curriculum has changed, which is fantastic, but I would offer when you're attending symposiums like this, thinking about those people skills, soft skills that are so crucial in whatever world, whether it's corporate or, other industries that you might,
And also maybe talk to senior folks in the company and like managers, and if they offer trainings, I think those kind of soft skill, leadership skill, like teamwork, capability, communication, those are very, very important in addition to the technology, like sort of technical skill you're building. Yeah.
I'll add something that's maybe a little bit different too, is it is a big change to go from college to go to working. It's, from when you're little all the way up to college, you're like, I know I'm supposed to go to the next grade. This is the curriculum. Here's the homework I have to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know that I'm going to get a grade. All of that kind of disappears when you start working. It's really different. Things actually feel sometimes much slower compared to being in college because you're not looking at quarters or semesters. Projects can take years and years, right? And you're not getting graded on your assignments in the same way. It's different. So it is an adjustment to kind of move from thinking about school to working. And the best way, honestly, to kind of get a taste for that is to do internships, right? And that's how actually I made the transition, and most of the people I know made transitions, which is when I was in college, I spent a summer working in one of the labs, and I hated it, honestly. And that made me realize I didn't want to go to grad school. So the summer after that, I actually interned at Genentech, and I was like, actually, this is the kind of work I find really interesting. And that led to going to know more people. And I'll put a plug in. A lot of big companies have things, what we call rotational programs, which are often for people who are coming out of school and don't know exactly what they want to do, but they're interested and they're bright and they're motivated, they can do a lot of stuff. And that's how I got my start at Genentech. It was a 2-year program, and I got to move through 4 departments over 6 months for each. So it kind of was like moving through different classes. But that gave me a chance to figure out what it was like to work, and it gave me to figure out what I was interested in without, again, picking one job and having to commit to it. So a lot of big companies have programs like that. And that's a great way, if you are not 100% sure, to kind of get that taste.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to actually wrap up because we're over time again. So maybe one last piece of advice from our panelists, and then we'll wrap and actually take a group photo. So maybe Jenn, would you like to start?
Yeah, I would say enjoy self-discovery. I think Andrew had mentioned it earlier, but there's a book that says, be yourself, everybody else is taken. And I love that because even now I'm in my 50s. I feel like, Jenn, what do you want to do when you grow up? Be a lifelong learner and know who you are, right? I know in your time, there's so much pressure to, be like this person in the social media. Know who you are, what drives you, what motivates you, what do you like to do? And be comfortable in your own skin, know what your superpowers are and know what you're not good at, and that it's okay. And really, focus more on your strengths and your superpower. Again, self-discovery. It's never an ending. It's part of life, and enjoy it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, as when you in the journey of discover yourself and your passion, I think be adaptive to the environment, like the whole AI revolution coming, right? So adapt to it, right? So in the future, there will be new new things coming, and I think right now when we at our age we face this, the whole things change, right? We do see people who are more adaptive to the new technology, to the new change. They can basically leverage the power of the change or the technology. But for folks who are not adapting to it, I think eventually they probably will not be successful anymore. And so right now, I think just learn how to adapt. And whether you are going to work on AI or not, this is really the time like everybody needs to be a master of AI to help you to the next level for your career.
Great. So huge thanks to Jenn and Ting for spending your time and a lot of your wisdom with us. And thank you, CJ, also for letting your perspective things. So before we wrap up, actually, we want to do group photo. So if you wouldn't mind, we'll kind of gouge together and actually just take a selfie. And then we'll go back to the main area we started. So there'll be lunch from Panda Express. And I think I would say all of us here, if you want to talk more, I think everyone will be happy to. If you didn't want to raise your hand in the larger room, just come up and talk to us. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.